When I was 6 years old, I really believed that there are tiny people sitting inside radio. Have you seen radios? Fantastic. And one fine day, I decided that I have to meet them. And I took the screwdriver or whatever that was available there and opened up the radio. Through the vacuum tubes, what I was trying to discover was where are these tiny characters? And then the power came, and then I got the shock of current, and all the vacuum tubes, it went, everything was fried. You know, my mother was not amused. But on that day, I learned few lessons. And that lesson, there are three things which I learned. The first thing was, if you are curious enough, curiosity will propel you into action. The second lesson which I learned was, not all action will yield the desired result. And the third very important lesson, the most important lesson which I learned was, a slap should not stop you from moving further. Be curious always. So folks, I'm going to talk about basically how childhood experiments propel you for or make you ready for future entrepreneurship, right? It's not the billion-dollar ideas that count, it's the small experiments that we do that really matters. And you know, every experience that we have, they keep on adding up. Let me now bore you with my childhood, and I'm going to take about 2 minutes to just bore you about my childhood experiments or experiences. So at the age of 4, I had to stand up to an intruder when all the grown-up boys in my community, they were really scared and they had really frozen, right? At age 6, have you seen these Diwali atom bombs? Right? And what's inside those atom bombs? So at age 6, you don't know what is inside it, right? So what you do is you rip off these green threads, and then inside those green threads is a nice cubical box, and then you also open up this cubical box, and then you get nice shining silvery stuff, and with your tiny hands you are also trying to discover, oh, what's inside this, because there's no noise out there, right? So you dirty your hand with all this shiny silvery stuff, and then you light up a match. Okay? That's the real stuff, and that happened on my dining table, right? So you have to again deal with your mother, because all these things that you're doing, you have to keep on dealing with your mother. At age 8, I discovered passion for reading. My mother used to read Hind Pocket books. She was a subscriber of that. Every month 4 books would come. She would read and I would read along. And that hobby continued till the age of 30. I also discovered something called encyclopedia, the Google much before Google. That became the reservoir for my extracurricular learning, the new things that I wanted to acquire, which was not there in the school books. And because of that, at the age of 10, I wrote my first research paper way back in 1980. And that was on asteroids, all different sorts of asteroids which was surrounding the planetary system. At age 11, at age 11, I gave my first school debate. At the same age, I also participated in the first quiz and sort of cracked it. I was in class 7th or 6th, and I cracked it with all the big boys and girls around. At age 15, my father used to have this scooter, and that scooter would go for servicing. At age 15, we decided, why send the scooter for servicing? We had this thing called Angan, the courtyard, and we brought the scooter in the courtyard, and we really opened up the entire scooter. That time, a scooter would have about 1,000 parts. The EVs today only has about 4 or 6 of them. And we put everything in that Angan in an afternoon, and we thought that we'll clean up everything. By evening, you had to wrap everything, you had to really box it up back. And when the sun set, almost 100 parts were lying all across, and we were unable to pack the scooter back. Right? So that's how, you keep building small experiments, small things, one experiment at a time, and each of these experiments keep adding up. Am I making sense to you? Right? So that's the story, and that's the story. The point I am making is each of these experiences add up, they build up your muscle. Some muscle, I want to call it entrepreneurial muscle because that's something that I'm passionate about. Now, you can say that, hey, Shivesh, you're all telling us your stories. Does childhood really matter? Because, today you go to something called Shark Tank and you have these big guys and they have said that they learned everything just because they did some previous venture, or one fine day they got some brilliant, brainwave and master stroke, and they got this that, oh, I must build up something called Zomato and something of that sort. But that is not true. So there's a whole body of research which is going on, but I want to really pick on two very important research. Researchers at University College of London in UK, so Duckworth and Schoon, what they found, they tracked about 6,000 people who were born in the year 1970, and these were tracked year after year for over 34 years to understand what are the underpinnings of success. Now, their body of research found something very interesting. That is, by the age of 10, there are 3 things which are predictors of entrepreneurialism in a child. And these 3 things are fairly simple: courage, curiosity, and confidence. And I'm leaving these 3 words for you to figure out the difference between the meanings of each of these, because all 3 words mean different stuff, right? But these 3 indicators develop in children as early as age 10, and the differences between the courage, curiosity, and confidence of someone who's at age 10 versus someone else, and if these are at different levels, someone will become an entrepreneur. Okay? Similar findings are there in another research which was done in HEC Montreal on Israeli entrepreneurs, but they found something very interesting. What they found was what we call extracurricular activities, things like reading, coding, right, sports, or any hobbies, etc., they contribute more in the making of entrepreneur. So curricular learning, extracurricular learning, and that's the difference, right? Now, I really want to talk about my research. I have been studying entrepreneurs for last 15, 16 years. And we created something called the EQ test, the Entrepreneurship Quotient Test. About 1,200 people have taken. These are CXOs, the CEOs, CXOs, the entrepreneurs, successful, failed, aspiring, various sorts of entrepreneurs. And if you really focus your energy on this chart, you can see we measured 18 parameters. I have put only few of them, and the blue line and the red line is the difference between successful people. Now, the difference between CXOs and entrepreneurs are very little, but they are in few dimensions, and I really want you to focus on those. Entrepreneurs are creative. They have higher self-belief, they have higher achievement orientation, they want autonomy, being your own boss, right? All those things. They are risk-taking, but they are exceptional at communication, and they are street smart. What is interesting, an interesting finding in this research is also entrepreneurs are less political, and they are in fact inferior planners as compared to successful corporate executives. Right? So friends, basically the message that I want to leave with you is, you don't have something called the entrepreneurial gene. It's not there in the DNA. It is acquired over small experiences that accumulate year after year that in our life journeys. Now, I have 4 life journeys that I want to talk about right now. These are the people who I have worked with, who I, you know. So on extreme left is my co-founder Shivani, and her life experience as a child was something like, she was given the nickname called Tod Ford Engineer. You understand Tod Ford Engineer? Right? Someone who had been given the freedom to break things and the confidence that because you can break things, you can also make things. Right? That's Shivani's story. In between is Manas Human. He's founder of a IT firm, a unicorn firm called Nagaro. And he left me with a very interesting phrase. What he said was, if you are a tinkerer, society leaves you with a feeling that you are an exceptional person. Now that's a very solid positive reinforcement that we are getting from society. Tinkering creates this sense of being exceptional, right? And he recounts a very interesting story that as a kid, when he was, getting ready to catch the school bus and the bus was almost there and someone at the home was saying, bus miss ho jayegi, etc., etc. This guy says, okay, to kya hua? Helicopter le lunga. Okay? Now, most parents at that point of time would say, pagal hai kya? But his dad said, wo bhi hoga. That too will happen one day. And that's the positive message that, that's a positive message that things are possible, you can dream, all your dreams can come true. Then there's a very interesting story of this person called Richard Branson. I'm sure you have heard his name. Now, Richard today, as we know, is a very, he projects himself as a very extrovert person, always there with hostesses and everyone doing fashion shows, traveling around the world, but he was born as very shy guy, right? His mother was really scared, right? His mother was a pushy lady and she was very scared that what's going to happen with Richard, he doesn't meet anyone. And so much so that every time when a guest would come at home, beta, can you perform a skit? That kind of stuff was going on, but nothing would work. So one fine day, when Richard was 6, they were driving, she left him on the road out of the car and asked him to find the way to home by asking people around. Now what Branson says is that incident built resilience in him, that gave him a sense of freedom, and more importantly, what is a word which is called agency, which means that, if you take some action, then there will be some result. That was his learning. Now I have a 4th story, which is a sort of a contra story. This is my own cousin brother Tuttu Bhaiya. I have not put his face. Now this guy was phenomenal. I learned all my stuff with him, right? So much that at the age of 14, I was making television antennas and selling across in a small city called Bhagalpur in 15 rupees when the television antenna was available at about 200 rupees. And I had learned the trick only by reading a magazine called Science Reporter, which would come in a DIY solution which was there. And Tuttu Bhaiya and me were partners in crime. But this guy, who was exceptional and my teacher, he could not succeed primarily because of one reason. His parents only valued academic success, right? So when there is absence of environment at home, talent gets killed, right? That's his story. So folks, basically what now we know is enabling environment has super impact. It has a multiplier impact, and if it is not there, then it will bury talent, it will bury entrepreneurship, it will bury success, and that's the lesson. So folks, basically I want to talk, I have spoken about three things: experiences, different types of experiences, experimentation, and there's a difference between experiences and experimentation. Experimentation essentially means trying out your belief to see if it is feasible or possible in the real world. Can you test your beliefs in the real world? So experiences, experiments, and finally enabling environment, right? So all these things together, they matter. They really matter. And what we know is experience plus entrepreneurship multiplied by environment is what we are now calling the entrepreneurial code, right? So if we have to succeed, we really have to weave our things around this. So let me now share some very interesting stuff. You know, in the last 15 years, I would have failed in about 52 projects where I have put my own money. That's a significant amount of money. 52 projects. Each of these projects would involve anywhere between 5 to 30 experiments. So really speaking, I would have experimented where my money was there about 1,000 times where there has been failure. Most people would give up in these scenarios. And the question is, what kept me going on? And the answer is fairly simple. All my experiments were designed as small experiments where failure was safe. It is okay to fail. You can, so it's like whether you want to fall from here to here or you want to fall from here to here. Right? So if you design your experiments in this manner, you have designed something which is easy, but most people don't let you out these secrets, right? But the secret is fairly simple. Okay? Now, the point is, why does this matter today? Why does this matter today? And the answer is we are living in a unique time right now. There was no ChatGPT 2 years back. I came to the school 2 years back, 2023 August, same time. No ChatGPT, right? And AI has changed the world in the most radical manner as one can imagine. Okay? We are once again back to 18th century when industrial revolution was happening and the world changed radically. But the difference is today it's happening much faster. It's not the same slow speed, right? 50 years it took them to change the world. Today it's going to happen in about 5-7 years. Now what's the ramification? Billions of jobs, traditional jobs are going to vanish. It's already vanishing, right? Studies show by big institutions that by 2040, the world is going to need 1.7 billion entrepreneurs. India alone will need 200 million entrepreneurs, but you cannot start preparing for that entrepreneurship in 2040. You have to do it now. And for that reason, this code matters, right? The code is fairly simple. What you have to do. So if you are a student right now, if you are a parent out there right now, what do you have to do? First, start journaling your experiences. Create an experience journal. That's a systematic approach. Second, when you are writing your experiences, commit yourself to some experiments every week. Right? These are not big experiments. I'm not advocating that you are going to build a CERN system out there, right? Make your small experiments. Keep on doing, keep trying, failing. We don't know the answers. Half the time you will fail, half the time you are going to succeed. But keep experimenting, because failure is something that is propelling you for the next level of success, right? Finally, the message to everyone out there, called parents, educators, teachers out there, is failure is good. Don't create environment where safe, today the real challenge is everyone wants it safe. But the fact is safe is risky. You can't live You can't create too safe a world when the world is changing super fast. And you have to allow space for failure. You have to allow space for falling, because falling is the only place when you take the next flight. So, boys and girls, I'm finally done. My last message is, trust your experiences, keep experimenting, and create enabling environments. Thank you very much.